We live in interesting times. The princess has gone missing. The Taosech, however you say that, has resigned. Taoiseach has resigned. Thank you, Casey, from the background. The king may or may not be suffering from a deadly illness. Everything seems to be out of joint. We could go on and on and on and on. When did the rupture in the streams of power happen? Most people, and we're not saying they're wrong, would point to January 6th, 2021. And we are here tonight on the Mosaic Ark to figure out what happened that day. Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. How did you say that? Taoiseach? Taoiseach. So
it makes no sense. It's almost as screwy as Welsh.
Okay, but in honor of St. Patrick's Day, we're going to figure out how to say that, right? The Taoiseach.
Yes.
Taoiseach of Erin. Yeah. So Erin has resigned.
Yeah, sure.
The princess of Wales has gone missing. The king is sick. Clearly, the times are out of joint. Do we need more signs to see that something has happened to the energies? Other than that, we're late starting tonight. Thank you all for joining us late. I had a dinner party to go to. One day I'll tell you about what I heard in this lecture. It was great, right? And it's actually all topical to Draco Alchemicus. But tonight we need to figure out what happened on January 6th, 2021, because everybody is talking about it, right? It's like my pictures already, right? We'll go to the pictures already. Tucker Carlson had Jacob Angeli Chansley on his X stream a few days ago, last week. I've only watched like the first 10 minutes of it, and I don't subscribe to Tucker, so I haven't watched the absolute whole thing, and I can't figure out whether they put the whole thing on X. But it's interesting, right? Because here's Chansley back, no more buffalo horned head. But when he comes, I was like, he clearly decorates himself purposefully for media interviews, and he's wearing a like flag bandana on his head, but a very like tidy white suit, right? And black shirt and everything. But we're still here with the shaman without, all of his tattoos and everything or face paint. But what's going on, right? Did you see any of that?
I didn't see any of it. I just saw the stills, and it's almost like it's a different person. Of course, he was in costume on January 6th, right. And it was a brilliant costume. It really was. He looked like a frontierman, with the big buffalo hat and
his face paint and everything like that. Yeah,
his face paint, his attitude of I don't want. It's not conqueror, just what's the word I'm looking for here? He's just his enthusiasm, right?
Well,
his enthusiasm for the country.
That what I saw. Let me see. It's like this is the first thing I saw of the picture of Chansley, better known as the Q-Shaman, in the Senate chamber was I think it's a tweet, it could be a Facebook post, that Jonathan Pajot put up on January 7th, which would be the day after. And I mean, to Pajot's credit, he was already like predicting strange things were going to happen. And obviously this is all topical now because we're about to do it again. Right. We're in this. Well, we don't know. Right. We're in this election year. I mean, we were listing off the oddnesses that were happening like in other parts of the Anglo world. But doesn't it feel to you like it's weird? Like, but weird in a different way. 2020 was weird in all sorts of ways. Right. This time, 2020, we're now getting to the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary of the world shutting down.
Yeah. Does everything seem weird? I don't know. Everything old seems new again. I mean, you have Napoleon threatening to march on Moscow right now.
Yes. What does Macron think he's doing?
He thinks, well, I don't know. What does he think he's doing? I have no idea. Then again, what did Napoleon think he was doing? Right?
Well,
trying to invade in winter.
I mean, to be fair, Napoleon had some successes militarily already, right?
Not in Russia.
Well, true, not in Russia, right? But he actually had like a practiced army in the field, and they'd taken over the German Empire, or whatever it was at that point. It wasn't Germany yet, and that when he marches, he marches from Warsaw, right? In the famous map of his army going into Russia and then most of it not coming back out. But I mean, Napoleon at least had some street cred. Macron doesn't even have the ability to deal with the street protests.
No, he doesn't. Macron is. I mean, he's wearing a costume of a strong world leader. He's wearing a pretend Napoleon costume. Look, he's a young man married to an older, previously married woman, and he's about to invade Russia. This is a little strange, or at least he says he's going to. Of course, people are just going to hold him back, right? Because he's just such a strong leader. I think it's just a distraction from his problems at home. He's trying to get people's minds off of it.
The problems in France and all the protests and.
Yes,
and then when listing off other things, they're having all the farmer protests throughout Europe. And so I was actually wondering myself, it's like Chicago in 2020, we had some events downtown in the summer with cars being set on fire and things like that, one or two. But what's been funny for me thinking about it right now is Chicago as a city doesn't feel all that different now. Like maybe we were already like so corrupt it doesn't register. Whereas so maybe the violence got a little higher, but the vibe was probably not that different. Well, that's not the way it looked from afar. It looked like a lot of places in Chicago where people used to like to shop and walk around. They just don't go anymore because it was completely shut down. San Francisco's the same way. And it almost seems as if the people running these cities are under a spell, like they don't want to see what's going on right underneath their nose. The complete disintegration of any kind of order, and they're acting like it's okay. And Macron is ignoring it and saying, "Hey, let's go to Russia." And whoever is controlling Biden is ignoring it and saying, "Hey, let's let 20 million people in." Oh, let's give them guns too. Yeah, that was the new thing today. I can't believe that. That's like the way they're twisting themselves around to make sure that we don't have a country is very interesting.
Why is that?
Yeah. No, well, I say with Chicago, there was a voting yesterday, and one of the things on the ballot was about a new tax on the super wealthy and their houses, and I think it didn't pass. Or apparently, it's like the stuff I saw this morning saying it's probably not going to pass, or very. It's like Brandon Johnson, our mayor, is not really pulling any novelties, but Chicago has been famously sort of involved in, side deals and such with different groups for decades. So in that sense, yes, there was a difference, specifically when there were the Michigan Avenue looting events 4 years ago. But I mean, the shutdown has been as much because everybody got, stuck home for a year as because of, the people in the city are necessarily worried about. There are more homeless camps around downtown than there were some years ago. But yeah, it's like, I'm wondering where people are feeling the most disruption and the most change, and where it can feel like it doesn't where I know in Chicago, it's like, oh yeah, we had some problems a few years ago, but actually everything's okay now and nothing big changed. Like, where are we? And the other thing I've been doing, because everybody in unauthorized world that subscribes to the leather-bound history selection, is reading the shorter Cambridge medieval history. So I said, okay, I got a PDF of it. I'm reading it now, and I'm reading. I've been reading the past few days about the 5th century in the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire. It's current events, right? The degree to which the generals try to take over from the emperor, but they can't get legitimacy because they don't have any family relations, so they put up a puppet emperor, and it's all about, there's no tax base. It's so topical. And then in the East, it's the empress who, in machinations with the, or maybe he's against her. I lost track, right? There's a eunuch involved, Olympius, who is trying to play kingmaker, and he gets killed. It's like, I'm now convinced every sci-fi fantasy author just reads like the 5th century and gets their plots from there.
Could be. Truth is stranger than fiction.
So here we have 3 years ago in the Senate chamber, an embodiment of one of these, Germanic warriors. Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Q-Shaman.
or just a frontierman, right? A borderlander that moved to the Appalachians, maybe.
Right. But the thing is, I think what people people responded to, January 6th with a great deal of horror, and people are still being arrested for having walked in the building. I mean, Tucker has been showing on his videos. He showed some of the videos of Mr. Chansley being escorted by Capitol Police within the building.
Oh yeah. There was so many videos like that where, people weren't breaking in. I don't want to go there because I'll just get angry and yell at the screen. So,
well, we need you calm so we can break down the symbolism here, right? But
I'm trying. I've been trying for 3 years, but anyway, go.
Well, to be calm. But the thing is, this is so. What Pasho said in his post is on the Q&A for December that was December 2021 2020 in his own live stream, right? I told people the world is being re-enchanted no matter what, for good and bad. And the re-enchanted is the key word there, right? I said events are going to get extremely loopy, and they will soon see things they have not seen in thousands of years, or maybe just 1,500 years, depending on when you count the fall of the Roman Empire, right? Enter Q-Shaman, clown face emoji, right? And then there's this great shot. Now, so we in the Mosaic Ark are, of course, media savvy, we hope at least slightly higher than amateur level. And obviously, to get a high quality picture like this of Mr. Chansley, I think he's chanting at that point, and he's got his flag. He's not using his megaphone right now. He's just got it holding. He's chanting. This is a really great photograph.
Yeah.
Which elves did not take.
Oh, I'm frozen.
You're okay. Come back. Go unfreeze and come back.
Okay. I will unfreeze and come back.
She will unfreeze. You all, as she's unfreezing and coming back and re-enchanting herself so she can move. Think about what it means that there's super duper high quality photographs taken of, I don't know, people in the Capitol building that day. Now, the Capitol officers are obviously not carrying around, foot-long lens cameras to take high-quality media photos of people like the Q-Shaman. Where do you think this picture came from? And has the person who took it been arrested? Do, 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 do. Has Casey come back to life yet? How have you frozen?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're still frozen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is really strange. I'm going to have to log out here. My computer does this sometimes.
Okay.
I'll be back in about 60 seconds.
So I'll tell her when she comes back, but I'll tell you guys now. Obviously, this is a professionally taken photograph. And the curiosities of what happened on January 6th is that, there's some videos of people pushing through the doors. There's obviously the one with Ashley Babbitt, should I remember her name, who was shot. So that was, they're breaking through the glass of one of the doors. But lots and lots and lots of videos of people like Chansley simply walking around the Capitol quite calmly. I mean, there's the video, the photographs of people walking sort of calmly between all of the guide ropes, because they're now in this, well, is it a public building? What is it, right? They're in the building that is apparently the head of our people's government, and the people have gone inside, and they're, going to be told in various ways over the course of the continuing time that they did not belong there. And what we want to talk about today is exactly what it meant that they did or they didn't belong, right? What kind of space is this they are in Washington? Hello, P.O. Bear, testing, and Mel. Meghan Markle acted like she didn't know the NWA song Straight Out of Compton. Okay, I'm not sure what that refers to. and what? So chat, you need to talk. Unfortunately, the time lag on things means that I say things and then you all realize later that I've said them. So we're still waiting for Casey to come back. Casey. Ah, there you are. Are you moving? But you're not moving yet. Oh, wait. You're back. Oh, now you're moving. Okay. You're shaking your head. Don't. So sorry about that. I will say, before we started tonight, did you reboot?
No, maybe I should have.
Yeah, just do that, because I bet it's your cache is filling up. And if you just reboot
that's kind of what it's acting like.
Yeah. Okay. So our tech, it's going to work. Okay. So, but that's as usual. Our tech problems are always topical to our theme. What I was wittering on about is saying this photograph of Chansley is a professional photograph, and I don't have the video of where I saw this photograph being taken, but I did see one where, and it may have actually been in the parent video of the little one that we have to talk about tonight. It's a press photographer taking this picture of Chansley in the Senate chamber, which means Chansley was there doing his performance of his chant with a professional photographer taking this picture.
No, when I first saw that, and I remember you asked your Telegram chat what they saw when they saw it, and it was a picture of Nancy Pelosi in her purple outfit, and then next to Jacob Chansley.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Oh, twins, because they're both performing. They're both in costume, and they're both performing.
Right.
Now we know what motivates Pelosi. What motivates Chansley? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There's so many people in jail. He's not. He was innocent. He wasn't guilty of what they accused him of. But neither are a whole bunch of other people, but they're still there. Right.
Nick Ox is still in prison. Our friend Nick is still in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people are being imprisoned left and right by this regime for obscene reasons. Right. Right. So.
And that's what we want to think about right now. Right. It's like these disturbances have gone out. I mean, definitely since January 6th. Right. Something. I think Paja was Jonathan was very much on target when he said the world is being reenchanted for good or bad, right? That there's all sorts of energies playing out in the world.
Now, that's what I wanted to say about Pajot saying that. Now, what it sounds like is he was restating using a kind of spiritual type language of the Great Reset.
Interesting.
Right? That people had already been talking about for years, you know. And I remember this famous video of then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton giving a big reset button to Putin, and all are laughing about it and looking it up. And it was because it was part of it was actually part of an advertisement. I can't remember what store it was for. It was Target or what, but they called it a reset button, and it was a joke in the ad. It was like supposed to be a funny ad, but they captured this and used it. But they've been talking about this reset. We need to reset things, and they changed that. They scrapped that. Now it's called Build Back Better. Don't you have to destroy something first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Make America Great Again and Build Back Better, are these twinned or are they opposites?
I think they're opposites, because if you're saying Make America Great Again, you're saying I've seen something over here that worked and I want to do that again. Whereas reset or build back better, build back, implies necessitates tearing it down first. And we did see them literally tearing down things without any kind of discussion. They just let the mob tear down statues.
True.
Violently sometimes. One poor man was at least badly injured, if not killed, by pulling down a statue on his head in Richmond. But that's just horrific. But they were allowing people to destroy things. And, I think the worst part of all of this has been, the perfect example is a media personality on TV standing in front of a building in flames saying, these are mostly peaceful protests.
Well, yeah. And that was the summer before this happened. Yeah. So all of the summer of 2020 was, street riots and buildings on fire.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but they did the same thing with COVID, though, right? They were telling us the exact opposite of what was actually happening, and we're supposed to believe it.
Right.
And they just keep. I mean, the lies are so obvious, and the gaslighting is so obvious that I think that's what's the most infuriating part. It's not that you made a mistake, because some people are claiming mistakes were made. No, you knew what you were doing. Nobody believes this is a mistake. It was on purpose. It was obvious, but they keep repeating these things. It's a weird symbol they're trying to have of repeating a lie in front of a flaming building that this is peaceful. Or saying this is a vaccine before you change the definition of vaccine.
Okay, so to me, this is re-enchantment, right? Which is, so maybe I do think what Jonathan is saying about re-enchantment is different from the reset, because the reset, which Clinton and the Build Back Better are, that feels to me more like progressive enlightenment, scientific, tech improvement stuff. Which,
you think they were talking about technology?
No, I think it's in the realm of we as great elite designer, tech analyst system. I mean, it's like the whole progressive repertoire of control bureaucracy people are going to do it better. Whereas
when Hillary gave that to Putin, the idea that she just thought was amusing for some reason was that we had a horrible relationship before, but we're going to reset it. It's going to be better.
Right. I think she was doing that diplomatically. Yeah. But I'm saying the Build Back Better to me seems different from the re-enchantment. The re-enchantment is saying you're playing with powers that are being brought back to. I mean, what I think Jonathan talks about, because he does tend to talk about this in his symbolic world analysis, is there are real spiritual powers out there, and they are going to be being drawn on again. Now, I would say at this point I would have to listen to a lot more of his videos recently to figure out exactly where theologically he's coming from, but the primary claim of there's a spiritual reality that's being tapped into in ways that we haven't seen for a while, or maybe noticed for a while, I think is accurate.
Who do you think's doing the tapping?
Well, good question. That I don't know. I'd have to ask him, because this was
I mean, it's a valid question. I mean, I think he's right. I mean, but I think that always happens. But I think he said he saw what happened on January 6th and thought, well, it seems to have expanded. It seems bigger,
Yes.
right? The spiritual reality seems to have amplified
Yes.
24 hours previous. Possibly. Yeah.
Okay, I grant you we need to explore more deeply where he's coming from. But in this moment, I saw that and thought, yes, right? Something bigger than just the people walked into the building. And particularly because of the way the shaman got dressed up, right? It's like there's, I mean, and that he'd being called the Q-Shaman,
right?
Whatever he is, right? So I'm saying, what happened, right? What kind of thing happened? And then, thanks to the magic of the internet, and I'm not quite sure how I came across being able to see this video. There is a long video from which what we're about to show you is a short clip taken by, and you can see this in the stamp at the bottom of this little video, a reporter who sold the story to the New Yorker. Right, so just as there's photographers in there to take the glamour shots of the Q-Shaman doing his chant in the Senate chamber, were those reporters arrested? Because they were there too, right?
Yeah.
And all of these...
Or the film crew following Pelosi around that day too.
Well, she does belong in the building by virtue of her job.
With a film crew?
Oh.
Like it's like she knew something was going to happen.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like before all of this happened.
I think so. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
I have to look that up, but yeah, I think it was.
Well, the pictures I was showing together, those were like talks, and I don't think that was on January 6th. I just was struck by her costuming and his costuming.
No, I know that. Yeah. Different day. Okay. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of mysterious things happening. This it was just, I was aware of the Q-Shaman because of Pajot's post about it, and then came across this video, which included one of the most famous scenes of all. Right, you got like a lot of stills and stuff from these moments. This video taken by a reporter, Molgelson, who then went on to write an extended piece for the New Yorker, and then he put the whole New Yorker video up on YouTube, right? So we have not just stills, but the actual moment when the Q-Shaman came into that chamber, into that room. And this is what we heard.
Hey! Fucking hey, man. Glad to see you guys. You guys are fucking patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you.
Yes.
You good, sir? Do you need medical attention?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
I got shot in the face. Where are you? I got shot in the face with some kind of plastic bullet.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, just want to let you guys know, this is like the Sacredest Place.
I know, hey.
Okay, you guys catch all that? I'm going to play it again. This is unfortunately jumping around a little bit, but there's this phrase that there's three men that are talking that you can see on camera in this scene, right? One's the Q-Shaman, one's this guy sitting down on the floor holding a bandage to his face or something, and the other is the Capitol. I think he's an officer of the Capitol, right? The policeman who has followed them into the room. So there is a policeman in there with like a cop. I think he's one of the building officers, right? In the room where the Q-Shaman is, and they have this little conversation about where they are, right? So here we go. We're going to do it again. So the Q-Shaman comes in, he goes, hey, right? And you've seen, a lot of you have probably seen this scene of him coming through the door because he's got his flag and he's like, hey, and why is someone standing there taking video of him walking through that door? Right? Why have we not learned to be completely suspicious of every media moment? Remember the camera, right?
Yeah.
he walks through. It's like this grand sort of theatrical entrance. Hey, through the door, right? Are we not suspicious that someone knew to have the camera on the door as he walked through? I mean, I'm like, this cannot be completely accidental, right? There's all sorts of layers of, if you like, you expect to see these things in movies because you expect the cameras to be set up so that they catch the apparently, you know, spontaneous action. This is not a theater, is it? Right?
Well, it certainly looks like one, doesn't it?
Right. So he comes in. The thing is, he may have been up on the balcony, and then he goes down the stairs, and then he comes down onto the floor. But the camera gets him walking straight in. He's going, "Hey." Okay, so he walks in.
Fucking hey, man.
So he's like, fucking hey, man. And the police officer is following directly behind him.
Like an escort.
Like an escort, right? The police officer is not trying to grab him. He's not trying to stop him. He's not trying to do anything, right? Why isn't he grabbing this guy by the arm and saying, "Sir, you need to come with me"? Not at all.
I've been in the Capitol. And I've been when the Senate was in session. And yeah, they're very serious about not disturbing anything. They will kick you out in a second. I saw people cheering when some senator was talking and they were told, "Be quiet."
Yeah, so these guys have practiced doing that.
They did it again and they escorted them out immediately. It all happened in a minute. It's like you're not disrupting anything. So the fact that this guy was following him in just cash, very chill. Hey, dude, you need some help, right?
Yeah, it's like,
no, there's no way this wasn't orchestrated.
By whom in some way, right? But it's like all of this should just feel like the most. And so what it's taken by the guy who did the New Yorker article, Mogelson, and there's some other. I have another photograph of still that I found that's somebody else in the room that I think has Mogelson, who's the cameraman for this video, in the frame taking the picture. So there's like 5 people in the room at this point. And the officer is walking behind Chansley and not at all worried about anything that Chansley's doing. Chansley's just striding in and saying, "Hey, man." Okay.
It's like they practiced.
It does look pretty practiced. Or at least, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they walk in. I don't think it's actually practiced. He says, "Glad to see you guys. You guys are fucking patriots." He goes, "Look at this guy. God bless you. He's got covered in blood." I'm like, what? So there's a few other guys in the room, and Chansley's like, "Oh, look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you." And you were going to see the other guy. Sorry, so sitting down by the...
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so there's a man, he's got a red hat on, and he's holding a camera. He's holding a phone to his ear, and he's sitting down in front of the desk, right? The rank desk that sits in front of the president's desk, right? The vice president's desk. Mm-hmm. And the police officer does talk to him and says, "Do you need medical attention, sir?" Right? So it's not like the police officer isn't aware of what's going on. He's following them. He's asking this man whether he needs medical attention. And this guy who's bleeding from his face is like, "I'm good, thank you, all right." The man...
It was as if they were instructed to let these people in, and that's the way they were treating them.
It's very calm. This whole scene is incredibly calm. Mm-hmm. No, like, zero effort. I mean, and the thing is, okay, this is what's important, right? These guys are not doing anything. There's, in part of the longer video, there's some of the other men in the room trying to make sure nobody does anything to any of the furniture or the people, or like they're there as veterans keeping control of the situation and totally keeping the peace. This scene is fairly calm because there's only a few people in it, but this guy sitting down, he says, "I'm good, all right." I think he did end up getting arrested. Like but they could have been arrested by the man who followed them in the first place. Yep. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. By the way they're acting, he could have just asked them to leave and they would have. They weren't being violent. They weren't being belligerent.
Well, he does actually ask him to leave.
You're being escorted.
Yeah, he says, "I'm good, thank you, all right." And the camera's looking at him, and he's saying, "I got shot in the face."
I got shot in the face with some kind of plastic bullet.
With some kind of plastic bullet, right? So the guy the guy on the phone he's been shot in the face, and now at this point the officer says to them, "Is there any chance that I can get you all guys to leave the Senate wing?" Like he asks them, right, politely.
Yeah, doesn't tell them,
right, which is treating them
because he's been told to escort them by somebody. That's why these people they take nothing. They take no guff from anybody. The people that work in the Capitol. I've seen it multiple occasions because I went to high school and college there, and I've visited there and been into the Capitol building several times as both a teenager and an adult. They're quite rude and gruff with the visitors all the time that I've been there. So this is not typical behavior that I've witnessed. And like, why would they be asking? They don't look threatening at all. One of them's bleeding from the face after having been shot.
Yeah, he's sitting down on the floor, bleeding.
Yeah.
And Chansley's just going, oh, you know, so by now he's walked up to the desk, and in some other shots we have, you know, he's taking selfies of himself at the desk. Right. And
as you do.
and the officer said to me, okay, is there any chance I can get you guys to leave the Senate wing? All right. And then this moment comes, right?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, so the man who is shot in the face says, we will. I mean, he's sitting there bleeding, and he says, I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place. So.
Yeah, they have respect for the place they're in. Yeah.
They're there in a place that they recognize as, and he said, they ain't been disrespecting the place. At which point, the officer says to them,
I just want to let you guys know, this is like the...
I just want to let you guys know, this is like the, and then the word that just flamed out at me, sacredest place. It's sacred. Yep. What on earth does that mean, right?
That's a good question. I'd love to ask him.
Why do you say this is like the sacredest place? It's a law building where you make laws.
Yeah.
Not something people, maybe they should, right, tend to think of as religious or sacred. It's all this, and saying this.
Sacredest place.
I know. Hey.
He says, this is like the sacredest place. And they all go, yeah, I know.
Yeah, they do know. That's why they're there, because they respected it, because it was full of deep meaning for them. Right. That's why it attracted people there. And the entire city was set up that way from the very beginning, to invoke that kind of feeling towards it. That kind of awe and respect that you would normally give to a cathedral.
Well, okay, so I did an extended blog post about this on January 19th, 2021. So I did actually, it's like, I was there, maybe not instantly on the day, because I'm not sure how much I watched it actually on the day, which is interesting. But then I'm starting to feel the fallout. And then obviously by the 19th is not yet the coronation, the inauguration.
Coronation, yeah. Yes, that was no Freudian slip there.
No, I mean, I did a blog post about that, right? It's like the imperial purple that all of the women on the stage wore at the inauguration, right? So I'm sitting there looking at all of this and saying, you know, looking at Angeli, it's interesting, his name means angels, right? So Mr. Angels, the Q-Shaman, is you know, it's got the face paint on, and the ears, the horns, and the tattoos, and the flag, and he's clearly meant to be some kind of mythological figure, right? The sort of trickster mythological figure. But what does he do? What does he do when they're in that chamber, right? Well, one, he takes the selfie, and you can see in the picture I'm showing you here now, there's a couple guys in the red hats directly facing Chansley going like this at the desk. And then there's another man in a plain green hat, and you've frozen again.
I know, I'm trying to fix it. Sorry, keep talking.
in a plain green hat with a mask over his face, COVID time, so it's perfectly appropriate to completely conceal your identity, right? And he's filming them. I think based on, I tried to count how many people are in the room and who's involved in this. I think that's probably Mogelson, who is the one who, Luke Mogelson, who wrote the piece and published the video of them walking into the room in the Sacredest Place and stuff. So he's there, and you can see how like small of a group it is. And these are some of the most famous images that came out of it. So however many people there are in the room that the Q-Shaman was at this desk, more people come in to the room later. Right. So we have, thinking about like what it is that we're seeing in this scene. It's like, it's a room with desks, right? What does that mean to say it's a sacred place? Why it's a room with desks? Why would a room with desks be a sacredest place? It's like, it's a classroom. Is it you're moving again.
I am. I think it's because of the archaic language and manners, the etiquette, and
You're frozen again. Please stop freezing. I'm going to carry on with what I was saying to the Pope. Oh, you're back. Okay. Ooh, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
would be called in the previous home country of England, right?
Right.
Was almost a type of egalitarianism that I don't know if it inspired the French or the French, inspired the Americans. I know Jefferson was a huge fan until it became ugly.
Right. Of
the French Revolution. L'Enfant himself, the architect of Washington D.C., self-appointed. As it turns out, he was only hired as a surveyor. But he had grander ideas. Yes. And he clashed with Jefferson because Jefferson was like, why isn't he following instructions? Why is he doing all this other stuff? And eventually got fired. But he was designing in his brain a new Rome, right? That's what he wanted to do. And I wanted to read this really quick because I thought it was funny. Some people have probably already heard of this, but so the land that Washington D.C. was owned by a man named Jenkins. Was Jenkins Hill. Sorry, was owned by a man named Pope. And I don't know whether he thought this was hilarious or not, but he changed the name of the creek flowing land into the Tiber.
Of course
so
he did.
Called it Tiber Creek, right?
Okay.
So it was originally named Goose Creek by Francis Pope. He owned 400 acres along the banks of Rome. I'm sure he was a hilarious guy, like the Pope of Rome, and this is the Tiber.
Right, right.
Right, so what you have now is land owned by a man named Pope, dubbed Rome, and the creek that ran through it was renamed the Tiber. And that Tiber now runs under the new Rome, planned to look exactly like the old Rome, complete with temples and idols. So
we need to unpack this more. Okay, so the thing is, what you're saying about the way people behave in this room, I hadn't thought of that. That's really important. Yeah. And that is, of course, so what I'm thinking about in all of this is the layers of outrage that people expressed at, you were in the sacred place, that you're not, so the sacredest thing.
Yeah.
And one, that they were behaving wrong, which is exactly, it's like you're saying
Yes.
that the Capitol Police are used to saying you're not behaving correctly, you're leaving.
Yeah. Oh, get out immediately. Yeah, it's immediate. They're quite rude, actually, sometimes, like unnecessarily so, in my opinion. But it was like they hired actors to replace them on that day, because that's in no way my experience of seeing them. Now, they've never treated me like this. That's not true. They did, a group of us in high school once. It was, I won't go into it. It was just weird. It's like we were trying to go in. They were like, get out. We was like, but we just got in, like, get out now. Apparently we were in the wrong line or the wrong door. I have no idea. So yeah, you had one Capitol officer telling us to go in one way, and then another one saying, get out, so it was just odd, but illustrative of their attitude. Their rule, their word is law in that place. And they exercise their rights to enforce that vigorously.
Yeah, and it's like the behavior there, right? Some of the other things that I was noticing that are in the blog post is like the color scheme in this room. They're sort of the wall behind them all is this gold right at the top, and then blue. There's no windows in it. It says the room has no windows, practically speaking, according to the architect of the Capitol, to insulate senators from outside noise. But in effect, it makes it completely sealed, right? It's like this is this totally interior room. In other words, as I said, it's a giant gold walled cube.
It's the Holy of Holies.
Completely sealed off from the rest of the world.
Right. You're not allowed in there.
And a cube to which only some people have access. And, and then of course the big debate is like, who gets to go in? Who gets to go into our sacredest place, our Holy of Holies? Now it is, so Chansley walked in, called for God's blessing on the bleeding man. God bless you, right? Went up, took pictures of himself, started writing on the pad and things. It got stranger and stranger. Eventually, some more people have joined him, and Chansley, being the shaman and taking his hat off at this point, which made him, like, when he finally took the horned fur off, he wears his head shaved, hat. Right? So he's nearly naked, right? He's got no flag on himself anymore. His head's gone. His head's off. He's like almost naked. He still had his pants on, thank goodness, and says a prayer, right? And it's like,
interesting. He took his hat off out of respect.
Yes,
because you don't go into a Catholic church with a hat on if you're a man. At least in Paris, they make you take it off.
Right.
It's disrespectful.
Well, he starts saying the prayer, and then he says, "Thank you, Heavenly Father, for gracing us with this opportunity." And then he realized what he was doing. He took the hat off. Okay, and then he says, "Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this opportunity to stand up for our God-given unalienable rights. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us into this building. To allow us to exercise our rights, to allow us to send a message to all the tyrants, the communists, and the globalists, that this is our nation, not theirs, that we will not allow America, the American way of the United States of America, to go down. Thank you, divine, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent Creator God, for filling this chamber with your white light of love, your white light of harmony. Thank you for filling this chamber with patriots that love you and that love Christ. Thank you, divine, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent Creator God, for blessing each and every one of us here and now. Thank you, divine Creator God, for surrounding us with your divine, omnipresent white light of love and protection, peace, and harmony. Thank you for allowing the United States of America to be reborn. Thank you for allowing us to get rid of the communists, the globalists, and the traitors within our government. We love you and we thank you. In Christ's holy name we pray." And all the other men have also taken off their hats and they all say amen. Some of his addresses there are interesting. The Creator God address is one that I think is particular to the evangelicals. I mean, we don't.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
It sounds odd to me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it does. I'm wondering what Hollywood scriptwriter came up with that, because that is just their perfect, nightmare. It's a horror show of what an American yokel looks like, right? He's dressed with a buffalo hat, which is cultural appropriation. He's covered in, strange tattoos, which were, not the ones our favorite Hollywood stars were. I don't know. I think there's an American flag there. It's how gauche, right? Can you be? This is why I thought he was an actor when I first saw it.
There is speculation out there, right? It's like, what is he?
Well, he might not be, but he, but then again, he was clearly selected to be allowed and to say his piece before he left. Nobody forced him, even though the people that work in the building, the security, it's to do,
right,
to eject people out of it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there were more than they were used to dealing with on that day.
Not in that room.
But not in that room to begin with. And they, I mean, so it's interesting that, one way I was thinking of it more neutrally is everyone in the building did believe it was a sacred space. And so even the police officers are going to behave that way, right? They're not going to want to disrupt it by making it worse, which was my general sense of what was going on. Like, they didn't want to be wrestling people to the ground in the Sacredest Space.
Oh, I think I've seen them do it.
Oh, well, then I have nothing.
Well, they didn't have to wrestle. They, lucky enough for them, they got up and left, but they weren't happy about it. But
right.
They were perfectly prepared to do that. Yeah. I mean, when you walk into a cathedral, you can feel a different energy.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you walk into this place, you also feel an energy there. I know that sounds kind of woo woo and hippie, but it's true. It's kind of palpable. You could feel something different is going on there. That is
what? Right. So we have the way they act. The picture of the people who usually are in that room, right? The senators, nicely arrayed at their desk and everything, right? So that's the usual energy in this space is people sitting at desks.
Okay.
And behaving in the way that you're suggesting, right? It's like with a certain etiquette and.
Well, etiquette, yes. Yeah. There isn't forced etiquette. The house doesn't force etiquette on its own members. So it's required of everyone.
Right. Right. So you need to behave in a particular way in order to do the business that is considered appropriate in this room. Which means every time one of them does a kind of disruptive thing and hope the cameras catch it, they're doing that on purpose too. The play disruptions. Right. I mean,
yeah. Like the sit-in a couple of years ago, some of them did. Oh gosh, could you be any more boomer? But anyway.
Well, and that it ended with, this is for the last one from my blog post, right? It's like this amazing picture of the Capitol steps at night with, like, there was fire or just smoke of some sort.
Oh, the smoke, January 6th.
And the Trump signs and the people on the balconies and the light in the rotunda, and you're just like, okay, that's something. I'm not sure what it is, but okay, this is our problem. Why does it work?
How does it work? What did it accomplish?
Yes, but the
part of the narrative.
Well, I mean, you've suggested a very Chestertonian reason. There's a guy named Pope, and he named his town the Rome, and there's the Tiber. That does it, right? It's like there's the holy place is recapitulated.
The barbarians are sacking Rome,
and here they are sacking Rome. So and it is called, of course, the Capitol building, which is not an accident, right? Since it's.
I learned something rather disturbing about that word. You probably know it since you're a Latin reader and speaker. So Capitoline, it's a combination of words meaning head, and then it was actually a name. So where Rome was founded, it was founded on the head of some warrior, right? And it just reminded me of Golgotha.
Oh. I didn't know that. I just know it's in Rome. It's the Capitoline Hill, and it's where the Temple of Jupiter is.
Right. The Temple of Jupiter was put on a place where they found the head of a warrior. Yeah. So that's why the cap part of it. But I thought, oh, okay.
It's Head Hill, Capit Hill.
Right. It's Head Hill, right. So Christ is crucified on Golgotha, which is supposed to be the skull of Adam.
The place of the skull.
Where Adam's buried. Yes. Right. And so Rome, Saturn is, it's almost Satan going, oh yeah, well, we're going to do it too. We're going to put our temple, our main temple right here on the head of this warrior, because it's not going to be built on, repentance. It's going to be built on war and blood. And St. Paul did say that the gods of the pagans, he was speaking of the Romans, were demons. So that they were copying God before it happened. Right.
Okay, well that's got way spookier than I did. Yeah. So what I said in my blog post about the Sacredest Place, right, which is what the officer had said, right? This is like the Sacredest Place. What does that mean, right? It said, as every anthropologist knows, it's like he knew the Senate chamber was the Sacredest Place because he knew it was filled with danger and dread, which you've just upped by pointing out the fact of its Head Hill, right?
Sorry.
As every anthropologist knows, this is what it means for a place to be sacred. The sacred is not safe and cozy. The sacred is not comfortable or homey. The sacred is terrible because it induces terror, right? The sacred is dangerous. The sacred is the place where God meets man. America has no state temple in which we worship our Creator as King of heaven and earth. So we've built mock temples and called them after the Temple of Jupiter in ancient Rome. The seat of our legislator is the Capitol building named after the Capitoline Hill. The senators who assemble in their meeting room may think that all they do is write laws. But what they are in fact doing, as Angeli understood, is invoking the powers of justice to reign over our people. At which point I observed our senators would do well to remember what happened to Uzzah when he reached out to study the Ark, the other great sacred thing, which was he dropped dead.
Yeah.
The sacred is terrible. Now so is this just the accident of the physical architecture? Chansley and his friends are there in the building, and they've somehow disrupted something, right? It's like barbarians in there. Chansley, he's also, though, oddly enough, dressed for the part of disrupting a kind of sacred, right? And he continues to play that role now. This is back him, this is what he looked like on Tucker, right? Saying, these are the things that we need to know about. Where was he and what did he do? Here's our temple god on his throne. This is a picture I took. Right. So here's Lincoln on his chair, right? Yeah. And what do we think? Tell me what you think is going on now that we've set the stage for the.
Well, I mean, image is everything. It's like, okay, I want to go back even further than Lincoln. Lincoln's an idol. Lincoln looks like Saturn, or sorry, not Saturn. Lincoln looks like Jupiter. Sitting in his throne, right in Rome. The head god, the big guy, right, in his seat of law. And if you go back further to the foundation of Washington, D.C., the capital, when they were first surveying it, and he was only supposed to survey it. So L'Enfant was the son of a painter who worked for the King Louis XV. And four of that man's paintings, that's Pierre L'Enfant Sr., still hang in Versailles today, and they're landscapes, and they have their battle scenes. So he was raised around great opulence. He wanted this capital city. He was attracted to America. He came to fight in the Revolution when he was 22, and he fought under George Washington. He was obsessed with Washington. He thought Washington had a great vision that he shared with him. And so when he said, go ahead and survey, I feel sorry for Jefferson. One of the only times I will. Go ahead and survey the land. And he says, yes, I'll do it. And instead, he's like planning buildings and streets and boulevards and canals. And he does it in 3 weeks, all in his head, because that's all the time he has, because he knows he's got one shot to present this to Washington when he comes into town. And so that's what he does. And he's never on time with what he was asked to do, which was survey, right? But all of this is swirling around in his head. And he was absolutely convinced this was going to be the new Rome. So this was in a book that came out just about 10 or so years ago. Sorry, let me try to find that. Here we go. Yeah, it's called Grand Avenues, Visionary Design. Yeah, Grand Avenues, the story of the French visionary who designed Washington, D.C. And maybe about 2007. Anyway, it's not that old a book. But it talks about L'Enfant, and it talks about his grand vision and how he was, there was a revolution about to happen in Paris, but he had chosen his revolution in America. It was his canvas, right? Like his father, he was raised and given instruction in art and painting and design. And he wanted it to be another Paris. He wanted it to be greater than Paris. He wanted it to be a new Rome. And so although this was a popular aesthetic in Western Europe at the time, for L'Enfant, it was more than that. He was going to paint this great work on this blank canvas that was this new country, that was America, this new republic. Because although the French Republic was going to be rising in his home in Paris, he couldn't remake it. It was already built. Right, the buildings were already there, the boulevards were already there.
Although Houseman does do a lot of that when he redoes all the boulevard in Paris.
Yeah, in Paris,
in the 19th century.
But yeah, this is all creeks and farms and almost nothing there, and he desperately wants to do this.
But so what? So it's like, so we have here, this is what Lincoln sees. If you're Lincoln sitting on your chair, you're looking down the reflecting pool to the Washington Monument, right? So there's this already this central imagery that the later monuments create, because the obelisk is put up in the mid 19th century.
Yes, mid 19th century. That was interesting. So Washington definitely had a cult around him. So he was very much like a saintly figure. So there was a community in Maryland that put up the very first Washington Monument. And it's not the one that I sent you the picture of. That's in Baltimore, based on Trajan's Column.
I've got the column. So I've got Trajan's Column and the Baltimore one in Washington. Okay.
And Washington, right. So originally, the Washington Monument, it was first proposed in, I want to say, the cornerstone was laid in 1848, no, 1823. It was proposed very early. And they wanted to base it on like the Trajan's Column copy of the Washington Monument in Baltimore, but the design got changed because of the Civil War and because funds needed to be raised. It just took longer to put it together, and by that time, the design just changed to something much more simple, like just a straight obelisk. Washington definitely had a cult already. Like L'Enfant, I think, was probably the first cult member.
Right.
Because but he had planned that out. He had planned out where monuments should go, where these big vistas should go.
Okay.
It was all in his head, right? And so later, his plans were found much later, in the late 19th century. And they tried to implement some of them. And of course, L'Enfant Plaza is named after him because I guess people in hindsight recognized, the guy was a bit of an autistic genius, right? But he had plans for all these monuments, and his first architectural job in the United States was in New York City, where he redesigned Federal Hall.
Okay.
And he made it look Greek. So it was an existing building that he just been modified to give it, I think they were Corinthian columns on top of it. And that's where Washington's inauguration might have been his first one. But he was when he was planning the White House, when he was planning the residence, he could several times refer to it as a palace. So
an actual
it was.
Go back up. So I don't have the slides in the perfect order, and I don't want to move around
That's
too
okay.
much in them. So we have some pictures of his design at the end. He makes that design, but that doesn't get built immediately, is what you're saying.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't get built because it got fired.
Because it got fired. But the thing is, when I glanced at it and I was waiting for you to tell me about it, it does look like the basic like street plan of Washington now. Is that not the case?
No, it is in the core of it,
Okay.
right? But then of course it got expanded later.
Right.
And then you have the spoken wheels that you see, which also exists in Paris.
Right.
Right. So they did. He wasn't the one that designed it, but I think they had used some of his design elements later when they built it out.
Okay.
When it started getting bigger because the city grew. But
okay,
but
so
he had
you know
planned
what
for it
the
to grow.
internet wants to know is this all Masonic spell?
Well, according to some sites I found. Yes, it's not a big secret. The Masons were very involved in designing a lot of the buildings in Washington D.C. L'Enfant was, according to one site I found, he and George Washington were both Masons. Washington was inducted by his brother when he was like 18. I think that's just what you did in Virginia. But L'Enfant chose to be inducted in New York City. I forget which lodge it was, but yeah, I think he definitely had a Masonic aesthetic, which was just a. We'll discuss this later, but I was just reading this book.
You've got loads of books. Oh yes, we're going to do art and beauty in a few weeks.
We're going to do art and beauty later,
to be continued.
In the early medieval period, the Stonemasons Guild was created, and it was very much the structures, and I'm not a scholar. I just read this book in like one day.
You just enjoy these things freshly, right? I'm buried in rereads and footnotes on everything.
That's a nice way of putting it. I enjoy them freshly.
It's a benefit. I get to be freshly excited about the 19th century. I mean, I know nothing, and so I just go, "Ooh, Napoleon, who's that?" Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, every time I move too much, I freeze. So I'm going to let myself freeze. And can you hear me?
I can still hear you. Yeah.
Okay, because you've frozen as well.
Oh.
But I'll just finish this thought. So the stonemasons were building cathedrals that were not mirrors of nature, but they were looking to nature for their cues and how things should look, how their design should look. So the design was based on what they could observe of nature. It was almost Greek philosophical that way. And it wasn't until Aquinas later said, yes, that's just absolutely fine, where people would just, I guess, openly talk about it. I don't know, but it was designed of what they thought that perfection was shown in nature, right? So L'Enfant's design for the city, apparently the streets, if you look at the lines and the circles, or what they used to call the spoken wheels.
I'm going to go forward to those so we can, guys, don't look at these slides while I'm moving through them, because Casey had all sorts of observations. There's Washington as God. Okay, here's L'Enfant in the painting, right?
Yes, that is L'Enfant's father, his painting.
Okay, the man on the white horse the man on the white horse very much looks like the picture of Washington. And again, this was a popular aesthetic for painting and sculpture at the time. But it shows what his influences were. His influences were very royal. They were regal. They were empire. Right. And so we have the Washington statue, the equestrian statue of him is where?
Right. It's in Richmond, Virginia, that one. But there was one plan to go in, and there might still be, I don't know, in Washington, D.C. itself. But again, because the cult of Washington is strong. It still is, really. I mean, I'm a huge fan myself. But there are towns named for him and sculptures of him everywhere, literally everywhere over this country. And probably even more so in his home state of Virginia. Yeah.
Do you know Franklin is the most popular town name in the United States?
Really? Yeah. Franklin's an interesting guy. I wonder how many of those towns are named after his many, many illegitimate children.
Well, I was thinking it was Springfield, right? Which, the Simpsons would you tend to verify, right? But no, we looked it up. It's actually Franklin. not Washington, which is interesting. Okay, so you're still frozen. Are you going to go away and come back?
Okay. Yes, I'll go away and come back.
So we got our biggest audience ever, and we're having all these massive tech problems. So here we have P.O. Bear and Mel. Hi, everyone. Kel Bear, Mel. Dun. Hello, Annie. Thank you for showing up. I'm saying exactly. It's a knife's edge, and you can feel it. Angels and demons meet and work through humans. We're trying to get there. If the demons will stop messing up Casey's video tonight, which is very strange. Chadwick, you're saying it always sound Gnostic. The plans for Washington. So we do have there's the seal. This I think is L'Enfant's plan, or this one showing that's a photograph of the streets, right? And that we have all these radiating roads that make everything very confusing if you're driving around the city. Coupled with the fact that I know from having been there in the center and being up on one of the towers, and all the buildings are the same height because nothing can be taller than the Capitol. So you have this bizarrely level city that can't get any taller ever, which I find also curious, since the Washington Monument has to be this very tall thing, and then all of the other buildings have to be exactly, they build them exactly as high as they can, so that it's all just completely flat. There's no variation whatsoever, because they're all trying to use as much of the airspace as they can above the ground. I can hear you now, but you're still not moving. Oh my. Okay, well, you're just there. So you're just going to have to be audio, I'm afraid. You're smiling. Okay, so prayer sent, gremlins of the air. Please, yes, make the gremlins of the air go away, because Casey needs to tell us more about the architecture. Okay, so I've moved it to, we're looking at the street plan, which looks like an aerial photograph of, okay. Oh my.
Most of them are from the late 19th century. Sorry. Yeah, no, late 19th century, right. There seems to be a 100-year period between about 1848 and 1941, so close to 100 years, where they put up a lot of these statues. So the Jefferson Memorial was finished in, I think, 1948. And was it begun in 1941? Right. So then the Lincoln Memorial was proposed in 1865. But they had to raise funds for it, and it wasn't opened until about 1898. But there seemed to be a flurry of patriotic activity after the first centennial.
Right.
So this is about the time the Liberty Enlightening the World is installed in New York. The Lincoln Memorial is open, and his son is there. Lincoln's only living son was there, and then the Jefferson Memorial gets proposed sometime in the 1920s, and it gets built in the 1940s. So there seems to be a buildup of these, and they use the same style, this Greek revival style, after the 1930s. They still continue with it, and it's like they were building their myth.
Well, you came up, you found a bunch of paired photos. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the stack. Of like what's going on here. So we have the Trajan columns and the Washington Monument. Now there's lots of speculation on the internet about that obelisk and why it's an obelisk. The one thing I know about the Washington Monument is that the cap is aluminum. Because that was precious. That was a more precious metal at the time than like silver or gold, right? It's like, platinum now. It would be platinum now, but it's aluminum. Which is kind of funny.
Aluminum. That is funny.
The original one was. I'm not sure whether it's whatever the very peak is, right? But when we say that the sacred is there, are we going so strongly as to say there are spiritual powers that are working through these things, or is this just the way the people are behaving around them that creates this awe?
Well, we had a really good discussion about Dune and the images that were used in it, and that the director was definitely tapping into things that people would already recognize, right? And the same thing is going on in Washington, D.C. They were using things that people would recognize, educated men would recognize, and uneducated men would be in awe of. That's the size, right? So it's the same way the cathedrals were built, right? And the great artworks were put in them. The theory from the book I just read was that the uneducated man could be educated by looking at the pictures. They would be attracted to them because they were beautiful and they would learn what they meant. So if you take a building like the Capitol, you make it look like a temple, because it does. It doesn't look like anything else around you. You may have seen pictures of it in a history book at one time, right? Of these old Greek gods, or an actual painting if you're lucky. And then if you go near them or inside them and you've got very official guards demanding you use the proper etiquette and everybody acts like it's the sacredest space, then you'll start to believe it, because it's tapping into something humans already recognize, which is things that are different, things that where you're required to show respect, right? It's like being in church. That they do understand. A lot of Americans do understand that, because most of them did, and probably still do, at least once a year or twice, go to church, and they know what it means to be in one. So I think that's what they were doing with the architecture. They were creating what looked like these idols, these bigger than life men that whose history you just don't question. Because why else would you put something up so spectacular? And it is spectacular. When you're standing next to it, you're in awe just at the sheer size of it. At the same time, as a Catholic, it just felt wrong standing in front of the statue of Lincoln. I always wanted to go it because I always seen it from a distance. And I got to go and be up front about 25 years ago. And I'm standing there. I was just like, this just feels wrong. And I couldn't figure out why it felt wrong. It's like, because he's just a man. Lincoln's just a man. Why did they turn him into this godlike thing?
Right.
Sitting in this giant chair? It's obviously a temple. Right?
Well, I do agree with you, but I'm going to make all of you unpack all of that you just said. So, that it's obviously absolutely accurate that from the 18th and 19th centuries, the educated people of Europe and the United States are reading Greek and Latin. Right?
They are.
Because that is the sort of language of scholarship in the sense of,
and they're enjoying archaeology, right? They're enjoying the artifacts from Egypt, and I think the first ones may have been brought back by Napoleon. Well, the first ones were brought back by the Romans, but these objects.
Well, both, right? The obelisks are associated with Rome because there's a famous obelisk raised, in fact, in Rome in the 17th century.
For Cleopatra, right?
Now I can't remember, but it's in Michael Hoffman's Occult Renaissance Popes, the Occult Renaissance Church, right? Saying that the papacy has in fact been involved in this occultism since the Renaissance too. In the attraction that they've had to the learning that comes out of ancient Egypt. There's also one of the obelisks in London, right? Now, conspiracy theorists would suggest that these obelisks are being placed around the world on purpose. They're in Rome, they're in London, they're in Washington. Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. It's the Stargate.
I sense skepticism.
I'm a bit skeptical. Yeah, I think it was more like, hey, we've arrived. Look, we've got our own obelisk, right? Now we have a connection to the ancient world. That makes us important, like the ancient world. I think that's probably more what was going on.
Okay, but so you're saying how unfun, right?
I know.
I thought we were going to be into like, spiritual buildings and tapping energies, and you're saying no? How Catholic are you? Wait.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't tap into energies. I pray to an actual living God.
Oh, come on. The Q-Shaman was praying to our creator God, Heavenly Father.
Yeah, he wasn't tapping into energies though. I think the people tapping into energies are the people not praying to God who occupy that building, who are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, right? So, but
spending lots of money that they've collected from the provinces. I had it. So when I was meditating on Lincoln and the Empire, recognizing like when all of this was happening to start with, there's a bigger other empire in the continent where we live. Although in this map it's interesting because it's showing for a brief period when the Spanish also controlled all the French territories. So it's like the Spanish Empire covers most of the continent all the way through Louisiana. Now, yes. Napoleon is going to very conveniently sell Louisiana to Jefferson, or to the United States via Jefferson in 1803, in which point we get all that middle bit, allegedly. But a good part of the continent stays Spain's into the 19th century. So when these plans are being made for Rome in the East, Spain still controls a good part of the continent. It's an interesting. It's too easy now with our expectation that it's appropriate the United States controls the whole from sea to shining sea to think.
Well, that sounds like an incantation too, doesn't it?
That's in a hymn, isn't it? The problem of what do we think they're imagining they're building when they're laying out the plan for this capital, when it's conveniently and hilariously located on the Tiber.
Yeah.
Are we saying are demons operating here, or is this just hubris?
Oh, in the actual. I don't think demons need a structure to act on Earth. I think this is their territory until Christ returns.
Okay. So all this temple building. We've got Jefferson's statue, right? It's like all, as you say, all of these outsized, these Colossus statues.
Yes. Well, that was to evoke a sense of awe in the people that their capital was important, that it was powerful, that maybe it shouldn't be questioned.
This is okay. Right? Even this is a little bit wrong. All right. So what it sounded to me like you were suggesting earlier was the people who design these things for Washington purposely want them to project of a something over the people, which is a sort of fake religion in a Rousseauian terms of like, that's actually what the ancient Romans did, which was, the real ancient Romans, who are the elites, are too philosophical and savvy to the nonsense of the Olympian religion or something like that. But they know that the people without religion won't behave, so they invent civic religion. This is in the end of the social contract. They invent a civic religion to keep control of the populace. Are we going that? I mean, it's like, are these monuments and temples? And here we have a temple of Zeus Capitoline, or is that Zeus Capitoline compared with the Lincoln statue? Yes.
Yeah. Right. They're petitioning the god. Right. Yes, I do think. I do think that. I think. Well, I haven't. That's a real tough one. This is where you want a time machine and have tea with one of these men and pick their brain, right? I mean,
maybe a cigar. You apparently like
and a
cigars.
Cigar and some port.
This came out in our writing session last night.
Yeah, I mean, L'Enfant was obviously an artistic obsessive type. He was. It could have been nothing more than that, but I wouldn't put money on it. I wouldn't, because of the time he came out of and the influences he had and the attractions he had to the formation of a new country, and him saying, I want this to be a new Rome. I want it to be more spectacular than Paris, right? For a Parisian to say something like that means something, especially a Parisian who grew up in court, which he did.
Right, but this, so as you're talking, I'd say this goes against, okay, so the parent problem of all of this right now is still what happened on January 6th, and why were the people not allowed in the building? And it, I mean, if the Capitol is it's like they didn't storm the White House, they didn't storm the president's house, they didn't storm the Supreme Court. They you know, doors were opened and people walked into the building that is supposedly representative of the sovereignty of the people, because that's where our representatives meet to make laws in our name, the people.
Yeah.
And
but the people that do that in that building, though, what do they think of themselves?
right.
I think they think a little too highly of themselves a lot of the time.
But it's almost as if it's like the architect. So the Capitol building is built in the mid 19th century, right? Or it takes a while. That's a big dome. It takes a while to assemble it.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it did. Well, the very top of it, the figure on the top of it, which I just read about this morning, and I've already forgotten, isn't that old.
Okay.
I think it's only been there a couple of decades. But yeah, when did the Capitol? So L'Enfant's plan included a palace for the president. He did call it a palace, and it included a building for the Capitol, because that's what Jefferson and Washington said we needed. We needed buildings for the government to do their business in, and it was that's all they said. That was their instructions. And so we want you to survey the land because we need to purchase land for it. That was what he was supposed to do. But he had these very grand Parisian-like designs on his mind for while he was surveying fruition, because he picked the sites very well.
Right, but Parisian means royal, right? The whole point of Paris throughout the history of France is, for a long time Paris was France, right? It's the Ile-de-France. That's it. That it's the king's, it's the royal residence is the royal domain, and France's royal domain extends outward from Paris over the centuries as they get, collect more vassals and territory and such. And so to imagine you're going to make, and Rome is, the imperial capital, the Capitoline. This doesn't sound, does this sound like, the we the people democracy that we're supposed to be living in?
You mean as far as the Capitol's construction and aesthetic goes? No. I mean, this was before the Constitution was written.
But these were all built after the Constitution was written.
I know. Isn't that interesting? And yes, a lot of them were influenced by the Masons, who wanted a kind of a secular, almost like a secular religion.
Okay, so somebody did want another religion.
From all appearances. I think so. Yeah, I do think so. Yeah, I think they were going for. Well, they were going. Yeah, it's kind of hard I can't speak on this as much because I haven't read as much as I should on it. But from all appearances, yes, because of the time, because his grand designs were actually put in place in the 19th century by Masons, who were influencing the architecture and liked his architecture and liked his plan for it. And he supposedly was a Mason. I don't know if that means anything, though. I mean, to get along socially, you pretty much had to join that. But then again, who knows? Maybe this is where you need a time machine, right? to pick the man's brain. But his grand designs said empire, and he wanted it to be like a Roman Empire. At least he wanted the capital to be like that. He wanted it to look like that. This was his canvas. He was gonna write his grand design on, and other people later agreed with him and did that.
Well, so
So when people think,
you're playing the very cautious character tonight, so I'm just gonna have to be like even more extreme and saying no.
Go for it.
That okay. So the problem that Pajot has been pointing to in his, you know, sort of the symbolic world stuff is, you know, the symbolism happens whether you are like intentionally working on it or not. You know, it's like the and I think, okay, I'm ventriloquizing for him a bit too, but it has felt to me like when he's talking, he's vague about the generation of this symbolism. Now, you in that book that we're actually going to talk about with Vox, in a few weeks, we haven't set a date yet, but we're doing our studies, we're doing our homework. The symbolism comes from God, right? The symbolism of you know the structure of the cosmos and the making of the world, and that the cathedral architects are actually responding to is considered divine.
Right. It's considered perfection.
Right.
So they're going to copy perfection.
Right.
As best they can, using the materials that the perfect materials that God made and gave them.
And for their purposes, I go back. I've been showing Washington in his shirtlessness. Here we have the Pantheon and a meeting room.
Okay, that is the Pantheon in Rome, and is right next to the Statuary Hall. Right, so that's in the Capitol building.
Is that the hall where they had the guide ropes that they walk through in the photos?
I think it was, yeah. And the statuary has grown over the years. They add statues to it, but it's very, very similar in design to the Pantheon. There's no way that's an accident, obviously.
Temple to
right
all
now,
the gods. Which we now,
right? So right now,
the Pantheon itself is consecrated as a church. It's St. Mary and the Martyrs.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there was a huge earthquake when that happened. That's another story. Yeah, when they consecrated, it's like the demons left and made a big noise when they were kicked out.
No, maybe they came to Washington. It's saying that but before the Mormons, I don't know. After the Mormons. Wait, that the statuary hall is filled with statues. I mean, this is these are Protestants that are making all these statues.
I know, it's strange. So the Pantheon originally held all the statues of the gods.
Right.
So the statuary hall holds all the statues of the venerated, right? The venerated dead, which are like saint statues in a Catholic church.
Right, but these are okay. So this statue, the naked Washington, is that in the statuary hall, or is that somewhere else?
That is not. That is hilarious.
Which you said he didn't like because he didn't.
I saw this. Right, it's now in the Smithsonian.
He didn't want to be divined.
No,
Augustus.
So it's called Enthroned Washington. Arrived at Washington Navy Yard in 1841. A committee of select congressmen were designated to formally receive the statue. They were horrified to find the great George Washington was indeed seated as authorized, but naked to the waist,
just like Chansley in his prayer.
And a section of a toga draping his right bicep. His bare feet were also in full view. Virginia statesman and later Governor Henry Wise commented, "The man does not live and never did live who saw Washington without his shirt." So as word got around about this un-Washington image, it appeared that most of the country were like-minded of the sentiment and convinced that George himself would despair. So it was sitting on the lawn in front of the Capitol building for a while, and then it was moved into the rotunda, and finally they were like, no, we don't even want it here. So now it's in the upper room of the Smithsonian. I think I saw it on a tour when I was in grade school once, and they were talking about how embarrassed everybody was by this statue. Because the only instruction they gave was have him seated, and have him seated like Jupiter. Oh, right. Like Jupiter. Okay, naked from the waist up. Oh.
What we could keep swirling around with is there's been this impulse to templify Washington D.C. as our capital, even though Washington himself doesn't want to be templified. Although, okay, so when they do end up with this is my favorite Dan Brown tidbit, that in, oh golly, the one that's set in Washington D.C. They did do a movie of it, yeah. And now I'm forgetting which one. Anyway, it's set in Washington D.C. And as Dan Brown, does, he goes around and looks for symbolism in actual monuments. And at some point in the story, he's talking about the apotheosis of Washington that's in the, painted into the dome in the Capitol. I'm like, that's got to be made up, right? It's like in the Da Vinci Code, when he's worried about the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and the Magdalens, and married with Jesus and stuff like that. I was like, this apotheosis of Washington, it's got to be on that level. It's got to be one of these strange, conspiracy theory hypotheses of this. No, it's an actual painting.
Yes, it's embarrassingly so. Yes. Yeah, George Washington, who was a very devout Anglican,
right,
as Jupiter, right, the god who eats his children. Did he eat his children?
No, that was Kronos or Saturn.
Kronos,
yeah,
okay.
Jupiter's
Saturn,
father.
Right.
He somehow he doesn't get eaten.
No, I truly do think he would have been absolutely horrified by it. I think he was just a farmer at heart, but.
Okay, so this has raised the question of the what kind of, we're still at the what kind of sacred space is the Capitol building, which we don't know yet, which is frustrating. Two, how does the United States end up with these temple complexes when we're not supposed to be worshiping our presidents or ourselves or our government? I mean, it's just like, how many layers of wrong is this? And of course, in Washington D.C., I finally went to see the Capitol building last summer. I realized I'd been to Washington a few times. Once when I was a kid, we went to all the museums. I think maybe we went up the monument. We stayed at the Watergate building because my mother's aunt was friends with the personal secretary of President Johnson. And so we got to stay in her apartment in Watergate. I'd never seen the Capitol building. I finally went there. It's enormous. It's like,
it is.
Talk about like the majesty of government, of power, of empire. That building nails it.
L'Enfant described his plan for it as a pedestal waiting for a monument. This hill that it was to go on, and that they achieved that. It's a monument.
But to what?
Right.
Good
question.
And so when you were back, when you went away and you were trying to fix your gremlins, I was talking about how it is a rule in DC that no buildings can be higher than the Capitol. Is that right? So they have no skyscrapers or anything. There's no like Chicago downtown with castle towers or anything. It's this incredibly like level city because all of the buildings are built exactly as high as they can be.
I'd like to say that's done for security, but I have my suspicions it's another holy thing, right? So there's Charleston, South Carolina, is nicknamed the Holy City. It has a lot of steeples, and there is a law that says no building can be taller than the highest steeple in that building. So that sounds a lot like the law in Washington D.C. saying no building's allowed to be higher than the Capitol.
Well, we certainly treat it like a temple, right? And
we do.
And that was it looks like one. And that was my meditation in the blog post. It's like that. I say this, Angeli knew when he walked through the door into the Senate chamber that he was entering a sacred space, even as he called out, "Hey, fucking hey." He knew sorry, I'm being accurate.
You gotta like him.
Accurate. He knew he was entering a place steeped in powerful magics, spells, and enchantments, a place in which dark-suited men and colorfully suited women craft the words by which our country is controlled. He knew that there were dark spirits hanging on the curtains around the vice president's desk, which needed to be dispelled by gesture and word. He knew that it was a room filled with dark energies that would flee at the sound of our Lord Christ's holy name. He knew that the Senate chamber was the sacredest place because he knew it was filled with danger and dread. I keep tagging him on Twitter or X. Like, please, Mr. Angeli, did I get it right?
Oh.
But it's like we may not have, like, we're not supposed to have a state religion, right? Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. They've got this bloody building that they do it in.
They got a complex of buildings.
Well, this one in particular, if the seal with the holy eagle and the magic pyramid with the eye. I mean, these are.
Oh yeah, that one's. Yeah, sorry, I was looking for my notes here. I'm trying not to. For some reason, I freeze when I move too much.
I'm not.
It's magic.
Yeah, I think it's magic. I think that's an accident of.
Yeah. Yes, this was the Great Seal, right? So Charles Thompson, May 15th, 1783, put the final touches on the Great Seal because it had been designed by a couple of people. And these people from a couple of different colonies, states now, obviously all had this similar educations in classics because they understood what the eagle meant, right? This is the Roman eagle. This is the Roman eagle that's been modified to make it American. Right. That wasn't an accident. That was on purpose, right? But the real kicker is the pyramid on the other side is the Latin inscription, Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? A new order of the ages. So they were creating a new Rome. If you put those two together, it's a Roman eagle modified to be American, and it's a new order of the ages. It's a new age. It's a new Rome built on a pretend Rome with the Tiber running under it.
So Annie's suggesting
very symbolic.
Seculars created the spaces in which foreign gods typically make themselves welcome. Well, that's what I think.
Yeah, it's a real chicken or the egg question, isn't it? It's like, if you build it, will they come?
Ooh, right. What's there now? And so, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and it recurs a lot. Neil Gaiman in American Gods is playing that constantly. And I'm not sure how much he believes in the gods. They make great stories, right? But again, going back to what Pajot was suggesting in our beginning, what is this reenchantment? Because when you're talking, Casey, it does sound to me like it's an architectural model and conceptually, and we want to imagine ourselves as Rome, and it's not summoning demons.
Not on purpose, but yeah, that is the question, right? If you mess around with a Ouija board, you may think you're only playing a game, but you may do something very destructive.
Right.
So yeah, you build a temple that is not meant for God. Something else might move in.
I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd finally say it. Not just this accident. Oh yeah, he liked the design of Paris, right?
Well, he did. No, that's still a question. Did he do that on purpose? Was he purposely inviting this? That I don't know. But the effects might be the same.
True.
Right? This is why I say it's like a chicken or an egg thing. What came first, the demon or the temple? Right? Or did they build the temple to attract the demon? Right? What is it?
Well, so I know this is what I haven't listened to Pajot in detail recently, but one of my favorite discussions he had of all time is with the Lord of Spirits podcast. They did an interview with him, and he was specifically talking about the egregores, right? The genius, the genie of collectivities, right? And cities particularly have them, and the idea of the ancient cities having a deity over them was this kind of thing, right? That there is a sort of it's kind of a aggregate entity that is, well, it's unclear whether it's generated or attracted. That it's an emergent being from the collection of humanity in a city. To be fair, Jerusalem counts as one of these. The scriptures, it's the daughter of Jerusalem, the holy city of Zion. It feels like one of these ancient city deities.
Washington D.C. You mean?
No, Jerusalem. And then
Sorry.
well, and then we wonder, right, the degree to which our cities, I mean, I think if we don't have Christ at the center and we don't have Mass, the other stuff is there, right? What you said, the demons have this, they're everywhere. So maybe they just collect like moths, right? In places where,
like moths to a flame,
right?
Sure.
In places where there's human spirits, there's human beings who are not protected by Christ.
Mm-hmm. Or then some who might be actively seeking out the opposite. We don't know.
Right.
But we do know that, pretending, making a pretend religion and having, pretend sacredest spaces is never a good idea.
Yeah.
So, that's worship energy coming from you. Where's it going? It's not going to God. Where's it going? There's a difference between being respectful of a place and considering it to be sacred. You don't know what that word means. It means worship due to God, alone of God. That's it. So if you're ascribing that to something else, we have a problem that needs to change.
I knew you and I agreed. Yes, exactly. Right. And the sacred, what's interesting about that is the sacred is this place of awe and power. It doesn't, if it's sacred to our Lord Jesus Christ, that's one thing, right? But if it's simply the sacredest place of what, right? And that's what I was feeling in the response to January 6th. And all of the, who knows what, what one specific effect of January 6th was, there was no challenge to the count of the electors, and therefore Mr. Biden was inaugurated, and therefore everything that's followed from that has happened, right? His presidency. So there's some real world practical effects of what procedures were and weren't observed on January 6th. But the disruption to the power of what plays out in that building, the people, the senators and the representatives were so outraged at the sacrilege and the blasphemy and the pollution of having these ordinary Americans wandering around the building. How dare they? They're not the elected people. They're not the ones, magically like empowered by the vote to be able to be in this room.
What's really interesting about that attitude you're describing, which is, I think, spot on accurate, is it's very similar to the inauguration of Andrew Jackson. Mm-hmm. So in his first inauguration, he had a huge barbecue on the White House lawn. And the doors and the windows were open and people were walking in and out of them. The windows were designed for people to walk in and out of them. In case anybody knows, they're huge ones that open from the bottom. But the general attitude amongst the elite of what. Now, I think by Trump as one of his favorite presidents.
Yes.
And I can't remember the reasons why. I'm sure it wasn't the Trail of Tears.
It was the bank. It was what Vox always says is It was that Jackson opposed the establishment of the Bank of America.
Federal Reserve Bank. Oh, right. Yes.
He protected the people from the usurers.
All of that. Right. So it's a bit of history repeating itself on January 6th, or it should have been, because I think they were peaceful. They were just raucous, not riotous. There's a difference, right? So that was the people at Andrew Jackson's inauguration. Yeah, interesting.
But the feeling. Okay, so this what struck me, of course, about the day is this. It's like furious elitism of the people that are used to being able to perform their court activities in that building. And in that sense, it does fit with the palace at Versailles. I mean, it's interesting that you can have a court culture without, in fact, a king. Although I continued reading in Chesterton what I saw in America, and I think I mentioned this a stream or two ago, but he does have this very interesting observation about how our president is actually more like a king in the fact that he actually functions, right? He has executive powers that make him able to make decisions and things like that. Whereas the king, who may or may not be dying of cancer right now, doesn't. Right. And Chesterton is writing in 1922 and talking about how the king then, right, he presides over the ceremonial, but he doesn't actually have any executive functions, whereas the American president, regardless of whether Washington wants to be seen without a shirt on, does, right? Washington famously refused His Majesty as a form of address, right? And he doesn't want to be, reelected and things like that. But the office of the president actually has royal executive power in a way that the king, who was anointed and crowned in Westminster a year and a half ago, doesn't.
Isn't that interesting? Right. So I think it sounds like Chesterton saw it as an elected king.
Yes. Which kings have been, right? Like having a hereditary kingship is one thing, but yes, our president is an elected king. So the sort of sacrality, the divine right that we're all supposed to not want to have because, he's just a president. It's like they behaved on January 6th just like court trying to defend their monarch.
I remember when Obama was president, and Glenn Beck was just in hysterics, just angry, and couldn't believe that he was putting his feet up on the Resolute desk, and he just went on and on and on about this. And I'm like, okay, it's tacky, but come on, stop treating it like a relic. I'm doing. Right. The Senate chamber, it's a sacredest space. It's a relic. It's a holy relic. You can't touch that. Right. And But
the thing is, I think this is an accurate perception in the sense that great power flows out of these places.
It's ascribed to them, and it was designed to. And the etiquette was designed to. Now, having etiquette is good for getting things done, so people don't, come to fisticuffs, which has happened a couple of times. The last time I think it happened, I was in high school, which is pretty funny. I can't remember who it was, but one senator complained that the other one was manhandling him, and he said, "I was just trying to straighten his tie." That was really funny, but yeah, it's to avoid things like that. When people come in, right, the constituents come in to view this, they're expected to act a certain way too. But it does go overboard, I think, into this is just, you're interrupting business, be quiet or you're out of here. It's sacred. No, it's not.
Well, the thing is, so this is where I think it is accurately that, right? And what I've been realizing and been wrestling with the last I guess since this moment, I finally understand what the question of sovereignty means, which is problematic for me and my teaching life as a historian, right? Because back in grad school, one of the things I had to teach in my TA section was the debates in the 17th century between king and parliament. And there's all this language of sovereignty, right? Who has sovereignty? Who has sovereignty? Who hasn't sovereignty? And realizing that it's a real thing, but it's a kind of mystical reality of who recognizes who having authority, right? And when sovereignty is wielded, it feels legitimately, which is according to the law claim, but if sovereignty is wielded authentically, people do respect it because you're saying there is an appropriate power that governs the people. Whereas when people start feeling that it's illegitimate, what we're seeing happen, and this is of course happens in the 5th century in Rome, that the empire can't stabilize claims of who's actually emperor. And and they, you know, they try various things, like you have to be of the imperial family, no, you have to be a military leader, no, you have to be, you know, in the right court relationships. But these things, they go bang, bang, bang. I mean, people cannot, these men can, and, you know, there's a few empresses involved at the time too in being governors. That when you get in this kind of situation, there's no, you know, 70-year reign of anybody, because
they moved to Byzantium. They switched the
they're
capital.
already there. So there's Constantine sets up a capital in the east at Constantinople, and from the early 4th century, there have been 2 capitals, right? And they're sort of you know, partner emperors, and then they're rivals, and then one kills the other, and then, you know, Attila the Hun shows up, and that you know, it's like, but it's this cascading chaos of nobody can stabilize a claim to, in fact, be the ruler.
But that didn't come from recognition from, it couldn't have, right? Because it was always hereditary.
No, the imperial authority was not hereditary. There are families like the Julio-Claudian line of emperors, and then there's the, you know, Vespasian, Titus, Domitian, and then there's the good emperors, and then there's the. In fact, the reality of it was, for a lot of the empire, it's the military leaders who have the legions backing, but they get in competition with each other, and there's periods in the 3rd century when they just, you know, keep getting killed by each other's men. The office of emperor was never stably hereditary. There were customs that it's recognized whether or not they come from the imperial families, but those dynasties change.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's this, you know, the huge question when the Germanic military leaders, who are sometimes propping up puppet emperors in the 5th century, start just saying, okay, Odoacer, famously of the Ostrogoths, or no, it's not the Ostrogoths, they're not there yet. There's a lot of those, you know, different tribes, right? Odoacer assumes the title of, you know, ruler. I should know exactly what title he used because I read it this morning. And he's not Roman. And it's not actually until a bit later that the guys in Constantinople declare that the Roman Empire has fallen in the West, which is then they use it as justification to invade and try to take it back power.
Yeah.
But this is all about, it's like it's interesting how a claim of we the people are sovereign versus the king is sovereign versus this oligarchy is sovereign. Sovereignty itself is this, like, how do you achieve it? And it's one of the great political theory questions, because it's clear when someone has it, and it seems impossible to create when you can build the fanciest buildings, you can have all of the elections, you can have all of the ceremony. Somehow it may or may not take. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I was just thinking of discussions of whether or not Putin's an alpha. It's like, you know him when you see him.
Exactly.
Right? You know you're sovereign when you see your sovereign.
Right.
When he acts like one.
Right.
And can command respect.
Right. And so we're in this weird position of, we claim that the people are sovereignty. We clearly don't believe they do, because when the people act as a body of, you know, the mob or the march or the voters or the people that decide how the money goes say, no, that's not real. Maybe it's just who has control of the building. No, wait, that's too simple.
That's what they try to make us believe, right? Insurrection. They overthrew the government because they took over the lobby of a building for
right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they did do enough in this. So the sacred is something that you can disturb in these ways, right? Spiritually and, I mean, psychologically. But like, they did enough by walking through that building for a few hours to destabilize something, and we're still in that, and we're about to go into.
Well, is that what you think?
Yeah.
You think the prayer actually destabilized some demonic activity?
Oh, well, maybe. I think that's a sub-level of what happened. Yes, that could be also possibly what happened.
Or did it cause it?
No, the thing is, I think the reason the country reacted so powerfully as it did to the event of that day, because something truly real happened, but like our descriptors of it are more indicative of its power than of its reality. That makes sense. People are upset by it, so something really happened, but we don't actually know how to say what
I
did.
think people were upset because of the massive propaganda that was pushed immediately about insurrection over and over again. I mean, I've no otherwise really intelligent people who just fell for it, and I was like, but seriously?
Well, that's where I'm saying that the hysterical reaction at that level was accurate. Something big happened for them, and since then they don't have legitimacy in this mythological spiritual level anymore. They have, control of the vote, not the votes. They have control of, the where they send the money right now. But the feeling of, like, nobody's going to be making statues of Biden without a shirt on. Right? Right? It's like they want to try to lift him up to the level that you would make a statue of in those terms, but that precious reverence isn't there.
Right. So they think since it's all myth, and since this American myth was built around Washington D.C. and its buildings, we can just build it around dark Brandon, and everybody will go, "Oh, okay." And we didn't do that. So then there were mass arrests, and we still didn't do that.
Yes.
So what's going to happen now? Your move.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And that's why the theater of it, they keep trying to make it theatrically happen, and that's what's very curious about it. They kept trying in the late Roman Empire too. Theatrically, if we can just get the theater right, it'll stick again. And it never would.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Charlemagne comes along and he figures out some better theater, right? But that takes a while and several hundred years. And then we've, spent the last 1,200 years trying to recreate Charlemagne's whatever. Napoleon tried too, right? He crowns himself. So yeah. These moments of it is interesting. It's true that political leadership has this sacred quality, but it's a fragile quality too, which is once you've touched it and exposed it, falls away.
Yeah, but that's when they get dangerous, right?
So that's our theory. Annie's agreeing with us. The blessings of the gods. Love this. It can be granted and removed. I think there's something. So all of the political theorists that recognize that there is something sacred in political authority are right. And what's interesting, because we've been dealing with this Enlightenment, rational, it all happens simply on the level of human discussion, theorizing, means we've missed badly the actual reality of where human political something comes from. I mean, sovereignty is the word that is usually used, but unpacking that is challenging.
Yeah.
So I think we should watch the video again. Here, we're going to watch the video again. Okay. So now you know what this, I got to interact with it. Here we go. This video means. Play it again. It's loading, I hope. Oh, come on. Do my video again. Well, phooey. Refresh. Okay, interact. Okay, so you can see my blog post. You guys got to go read the blog post. But I will play for you the video one more time so you can reflect on. Hey.
Fucking hey, man. Glad to see you guys. You guys are fucking patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you.
Yes.
You good, sir? Do you need medical attention?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
I got shot in the face. Where are they? I got shot in the face with some kind of plastic bullet.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, just want to let you guys know this is like the sacredest place.
I know. Hey.
This is like the sacredest place. Remember that. Do not be surprised when weird things start happening again.
Yeah. Be a good time to fast from news and television over the next 6 months.
You know, it's going to happen regardless of whether we're paying attention, I think. But pray for the country and that we return to our Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for joining us a little late tonight. We'll be back next week with, we hope, special guest. Watch for announcements. Like, subscribe to Unauthorized TV once we get the subscription channel back, subscription portals back up. Subscribe on YouTube, support our art, buy our books. We're telling all of these mythological stories in full color.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Night.